So EA just came out with its top 25 toughest places to play in EA College Football 25, and I'm sure we all have our own issues with it. I know I do. If you haven't seen the entire top 25, we'll run through it in a little bit. However, the EA social media team posted the top 10 on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm sure some other places. And that post stirred up quite the discussion on Twitter. I have my own thoughts, and I also have a few things I want to say about it in general. The first thing I want to talk about is in regards to everyone getting so worked up about it. And I understand we're college football fans that are irrationally passionate about our teams. And I understand that was the point of the post, was to get the discussion and the talk of the game going. But I think what we forgot to realize in the immediate aftermath of that release is that the toughness of opposing stadiums is dynamic through the dynasty. Meaning that after the first year, or even halfway through the first year, the rankings are going to change. It's not something that's set in stone through the entirety of the game. The devs even said they're going to change it throughout the season. And so that when you start a dynasty later in the year, it'll change as well. There's really no reason to worry about it right now. But again, I get it. Irrationally passionate college football fans. It's going to happen. Whenever there's a list, there's always this kind of visceral reaction. It's just kind of how the sport works and how we as fans, treat the sport. And I wouldn't change it for anything. It's what makes it special. But I do want to talk about the list because, like I said, I have my opinions on it. And I think that the formula that they created, or the algorithm that the devs created at EA, has a little bit of flaw in it. And I think it puts too much onus on some certain things. And so we're going to get into that in a little bit. But let's go over the top 10 in case you missed it earlier. I don't know how you would have if you're watching this video. They had Kyle Field number 1, Bryant-Denny Stadium number 2, Tiger Stadium number 3, Ohio Stadium 4, Sanford Stadium 5, 6 is Beaver Stadium, 7 is Camp Randall Stadium, Oklahoma Memorial Stadium is 8, Doak Campbell Stadium is 9, and Ben Hill Griffin Stadium is number 10, rounding out those top 10 on the social media post. This is where my big issue comes in. They put way too much onus on home winning percentage. It's almost like they treated the good teams as good home atmospheres. And just because your team is good does not mean your home crowd is elite. An example that I used on my Twitter, follow me at Bryce Tinson for some seriously stupid takes, but also every once in a while I hit on something and I sound smart. So make sure to follow there. But it was Ross-Ade Stadium. Purdue is not the best program recently. Obviously, we know that they went to a Big Ten championship 2 years ago, but then they came back and won 4 games last year. It's not this elite program that we see, the Alabamas or the Georgias or the Ohio States, right? But they seat 61,000, and I'll tell you what, I don't want to see at Purdue on my schedule. Just ask Ohio State, Iowa, Michigan State, all teams that have gone in there ranked, highly ranked at that, and have lost. Why? Because Purdue is not an easy place to play. That crowd gets rowdy, but the team isn't good. That's not on the fans, but this winning percentage kind of makes it seem like it is. In that same vein, I think Bryant-Denny, the Shoe, Sanford, and Oklahoma have great atmospheres, but I wouldn't put them in the top 10. There are other stadiums that are louder and have more of an impact on the opposing teams than those ones. My other main problem is that LSU is not 1 and Penn State is not 2. When we get into my list later, you'll see that those are my 1 and 2, and I feel pretty staunchly about that. I've not had the privilege of going to an LSU game, but I think when 90% of college football fans say it's number 1, it's probably number 1. I have, however, been able to go to Beaver Stadium, and it absolutely lived up to the hype. Ridiculous atmosphere, and it wasn't even that big of a game. There's places like that where you go, and it's kind of, it's a noon kick, and the stakes aren't that high, but the juice is still there. Those are the special stadiums, and it's where Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia are lacking, in my opinion. Now, we're less than 3 weeks away from EA College Football 25 dropping. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my videos, whether it be Dynasties, Road to Glory, or just general thoughts and opinions on the game. You're going to want to see it, so make sure to hit that subscribe button. The next 15 in the EA rankings goes as follows. Autzen Stadium, Memorial Stadium, Neyland Stadium, Jordan-Hare Stadium, Williams-Brice Stadium, Michigan Stadium, Lane Stadium, Rice-Eccles Stadium, DKR, Kinnick Stadium, Notre Dame, Spartan Stadium, Razorback Stadium, Albertson Stadium, and Davis-Wade Stadium. There's a couple of teams that I'm shocked they omitted from this list, but again, I'm not surprised. There's only 25 spots. Somebody's going to have to be a snub, and unfortunately, they didn't pick teams that I agreed with. There are 4 teams that I think should be on this list that aren't. Husky Stadium, Washington, I think should probably be in the top 15. Like, it's kind of a crime against humanity that they weren't even in the top 25. I think they're absolutely a top 15 toughest place to play. Opposing teams always struggle going in there, and the canopies definitely help keep that sound in. Like at CenturyLink Field, I guess it's not CenturyLink anymore, but it's the same vibe. You know, the decibel rating just keeps growing because the fans are loud, A, and B, it feels like the sound doesn't leave the stadium. Carter Finley Stadium is another one it's just underrated across all of college football, which is kind of sad because NC State, you know, while they're not an elite program, they're a very consistent team. I just, you know, I wish people would ask some of those ACC schools where they would hate to play, and I would 100% guarantee that in the top 3 of the conference foes, Carter Finley is in that top 3 without a doubt. I mean, it is insanely loud. Raleigh gets up for those Wolfpack games. I'll tell you what, like, that's a place that should be in this list and that I wouldn't want to go play in, you know? Boone Pickens Stadium is another one, and this one might just be because of Stillwater at night. I mean, you see some of those Oklahoma State games at night, and it's like, holy crap, this stadium just has one of the coolest, toughest atmospheres in all of college football. And then the fourth one is the Coliseum, and maybe this is on me because I'm thinking too much about how it looked during the Pete Carroll era because it hasn't really been back to this, but I think it at least belongs in the top 25. I mean, it's just unbelievable what Los Angeles does for USC when they're good. And maybe that's another thing is they're front runners. They're not like some of these other schools that, you know, even when they're bad, they're still there. But I think that atmosphere is enough to be in the top 25. Now, the stadiums I'd take out are the last 4. Spartan Stadium is good, not great. Razorback Stadium is a tad overrated in my opinion. Albertson Stadium isn't even the best group of 5 stadium in the country, in my opinion. For my money, it's Dowdy Ficken ECU. When ECU is good, that place is the best group of 5 atmosphere in all of college football. And to be honest, I don't think Cowboys really do that much. I think they're more annoying than anything else. I try to create my own list because the thing I dislike most is when people critique lists, but then aren't willing to put up their own as a rebuttal. And then the more I thought about it, while I was putting together this list, the more I realized that it's super hard to create what feels like a quote-unquote good list. There's a lot of teams that I could be convinced belong in the top 10 or even the top 25. Literally, all you have to do is show me a really cool clip of your atmosphere and I'll be on your side. Like, I will not even question it. I'll be like, oh, that's sick? Yeah, absolutely. But all this kind of brings up a bigger point. How tough these stadiums are to play in is dependent on the external factors of the game. Michigan is going to be louder at home for a Michigan State game at night or Ohio State than it is if they're playing Indiana at 3:30. Boone Pickens is an elite atmosphere at night, like I mentioned, but for an 11 o'clock kick, it's just good. It's not elite. If the toughness was dynamic in that sense, it would be really cool. But it's tough to account for that in a video game. Like, how do you add in the night factor, you know, where it doesn't really matter where it is, but a night game just has so much more feel to it. The anticipation. You know, Lane Stadium at night has an extra gear even to Lane Stadium during the day. Now, my list is nothing special, and it definitely shouldn't be taken as fact. I want that printed all over the place. Don't take this as fact. It is literally just my opinion. In fact, comment below what your top 10 is or why your favorite team should be in the top 10 or top 25. I love learning about some of these new stadium traditions or old stadium traditions and what makes those atmospheres special. So drop those down in the comments. Without further ado, my number 1 is Tiger Stadium. Like I said, I absolutely think it's the best stadium atmosphere in college football, the toughest place to play, and it's backed up by a lot of different people. So that is number 1. Number 2, Beaver Stadium, Penn State. They do everything right there. It might feel like a little bit of a cult, but that definitely helps when it comes game time. They are in step with everything they do. The stadium participation is probably the best in the entire country. Every single chant, every single timeout, every single middle of the play, every single pre-snap, it's crazy all the time there. Number 3 is Jordan-Hare Stadium. I really don't know how it's not higher on EA's list. All you have to do, in my opinion, is look at how good Auburn is at home when they're playing Alabama or Georgia or any of the other big teams, but especially those 2 rivals, versus when they play those rivals on the road. There is something special about that stadium that opposing teams struggle with and Auburn feeds on. It's insane. It's seen nowhere else. They absolutely should be number 3. Number 4 is Neyland Stadium. I mean, this is one of those, All I had to see was clips from the Alabama game when they won, and it's like, okay, yep, that stadium absolutely belongs there. But I've also heard from a lot of people that it is amazing. The atmosphere, they're super loud. I think they're 85,000 strong. It is, when they do the checkerboard, it is so cool. So Neyland Stadium at number 4. Number 5 is Autzen Stadium. The Pacific Northwest does it right. I don't really know what else to say other than Autzen is one of the toughest places to play in all of college football. I certainly wouldn't want to go play there. Fans are super loud. They get up for the games. It's that energy that you can feel in the stadium. Autzen has that. Number 6 is Doak Campbell Stadium, Florida State. The tomahawk chop is really all you need. Is elite. It just is. I mean, there's no two ways about it. Number 7 is Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, Florida. I mean, when they were good in the mid-2000s, there was no better atmosphere in college football. Now, because they haven't been great, it hasn't been, top 3 elite, but it's still absolutely been top 10 elite. That place is always packed, always ready to go. Number 8 is Rice-Eccles Stadium, one of my favorite stadiums in the entire country. Utah fans are legit, and that place is amazing. It just is uncanny, their ability to make opposing teams' lives miserable. It just is. Number 9 is Camp Randall. Wisconsin does it right. They really do. Camp Randall's a super tough place to play. When they do jump around in the third quarter, like that gets to a lot of teams. That is one of the better, traditions in all of college football too. So that one's definitely top 10. And then to round out the top 10, I do think Kyle Field is a top 10 atmosphere. The Texas A&M fans are literally a cult, and so that helps a ton. When you get into these stadiums, when you get into these games, you need everybody on the same page. They are, all of their Aggie war cries or whatever they call them, they're quirky, but they're fun, and they make for a tough place to play, especially when Texas A&M is good. We'll speed run through 11 through 25. 11 is Memorial Field, Clemson. 12 is Kinnick Stadium, Iowa. 13 is Husky Stadium, Washington. 14, Lane Stadium, Virginia Tech. 15, Ohio Stadium, Ohio State. 16, Bryant-Denny Stadium, Alabama. 17, the Big House, Michigan Stadium, Michigan. 18, Williams-Brice Stadium, South Carolina. 19, Carter-Finley Stadium, NC State. 20, Boone-Pickens Stadium, Oklahoma State. 21, Notre Dame Stadium, Notre Dame. 22, the Coliseum, USC. 23, DKR, Texas. 24, Oklahoma Memorial, Oklahoma. And then number 25, rounding it out, Sanford Stadium, Georgia. Like I said, should not be taken as fact. I do think that I'm a little bit lower on some of the SEC schools, especially I would say the more elite programs. I feel like there's something that when your team is better, you have less of an incentive to really go all out for some of those big games. And I know that they still do, but there's a sense of entitlement of we've already been here before that I think kind of takes down some of this atmosphere. Like Michigan Stadium is absolutely one. I've been to a bunch of games there. The atmosphere is not as great as you think it'd be for 110,000. There's a lot of people who don't want to stand during the game, who don't want to cheer. They just sit there and watch the game. And the atmosphere hurts because of it. If they wanted to, they could absolutely be like Beaver Stadium. Maybe not quite like it because they're built like a bowl and the sound doesn't stick, but you can absolutely be that loud. We saw it with the Washington game in 2021. That place was crazy with the maze out. And pom-poms waving everywhere. It's possible there, but, consistency is not there. They just do not get up for some of those Rutgers and Indianas and Marylands. They don't do it, and so that's why they're lower. It's kind of the same with Sanford. It's like when teams can come into your place and really not be fazed, you've got a problem. But this is all my opinion, and it really was just for fun, a quick little exercise. I really do appreciate you all for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to hit the like button. I got a lot more content coming your way in the next couple of weeks before the game drops, so make sure you're ready. I mean, that's subscribing, that's hitting the notification bell, that's liking videos, it's commenting. Make sure it shows up more on your recommended page. Thank you all so much for watching. See ya.